Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for part two of our AI webcast. We explored why business leaders must approach AI thoughtfully and strategically. Now, today we're going to shift from awareness to action. How to start operationalizing AI inside your organization. Excuse me, what practical first steps to take, and how to make AI a true force multiplier for growth. Once again, we're joined by Aries Youssefian to share real-world insights that can help you turn AI potential into business results. Welcome, Aries.
Thanks for having me back, Michael.
Absolutely. Now, as last time, I'm just going to give you some prompts and let you roll. AI is here to stay. We all agree with that. And if you don't, you're on the wrong podcast. But how should organizations frame this reality internally to kind of drive both urgency and responsible adoption?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's good to hear. I'm asking great
It's
questions.
a yeah, you got all the great ones. No, it really is because and I touched on this in the last one. The urgency to move quickly but not break things is something that a lot, especially regulated companies, are grappling with. These are questions that they sit around. A lot of investments, a lot of board of directors are looking at all of these statements coming out of even like CEOs saying things like, we're not hiring any more people. If you need budget for a project, you need to justify that budget and why you can't figure out a way to do it with just AI first. That really underscores the importance and really the revolution of AI and all of the different methodologies and frameworks that these tools are now bringing in. It's I don't mean to sound alarmist, but it almost seems like some days it's ripping apart the fabric of what we thought was how things were done, and kind of plunging us into this new reality, whether we were ready for it or not. And not to sound scary, I think we're at that intersection where business leaders who are early to adopt this have a strong first mover advantage over
Yes.
ones who are still kind of delaying that decision. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. First of all, don't just go and enable ChatGPT for all of your users. I would say that's a bit of that's a bit of a quick, depending on and again, depending on the nature of your business, depending on your vertical, what industry you're in, different steps apply. But from a high level perspective, your first step is you have to consider the governance and the ethical obligations you have around protecting your data and your customers' data. I think that's step one. Step two is then figuring out what kind of tools we're going to make available to our frontline staff so they could do their jobs better. And the number one tool people seem to look for is a blessed conversational assistant. They want that ChatGPT or ChatGPT like equivalent where they can chat with an assistant, they can chat with an LLM, but they also want to enrich that process with data that's relevant to the job that they're doing, whether it's customer data, whether it's marketing or field data that is a part of their job. They almost prefer to use that over being able having to dig through all of these purpose built sort of dashboards, especially if they're new to the organization. We've seen real performance and efficiency gains in areas like employee onboarding, customer outreach, personalizing content for specific, communications or customer profile recommendations. All of these things are very much enriched by creating these conversational assistants. But like I said, if you're not careful with how you're structuring that data, and especially if you're not careful, if you're under, let's say, if you're a compliance based business and you just blanket enable an LM tool, especially one that's hosted, you might be in for a bit of a surprise when the regulator comes and gives you a pretty big fine, if not a smack on the wrist. So you have to be careful, but you have to move quickly. I do agree with that.
Now, one thing my interaction with AI and ChatGPT, it's almost teaching me how to ask better, how to interact better as a part of. So it's almost a unique in that it is very different than technology that has come before that as I'm growing exponentially by using it. So how should business leaders think about training and adoption in this new environment?
That's actually a very good point as well, because when you look at typically when new technology comes out, there's such a high cliff to entry. you have to go through training. You need to cut your teeth on maybe a lot of foundational technical concepts before you even get into the application of that new technology or modality. LLMs and these conversational assistants are completely defy that because they're so powerful from a technology perspective, but their barrier to entry is what you have to just be able to speak English. That's it. You just have to be able to type. And if you're uncomfortable typing, well, guess what? It can you can use it. You can use a microphone and a headset to actually talk to it. It can do voice to text and text to voice very easily as well. So what you're seeing is no matter what your technical capabilities are, you can start using this. And to your point, whether if you're sitting there and you're wondering like, okay, well, is someone going to come and teach me how to use it? Absolutely. There's tons of partners, there's tons of resources like that that'll help you, design your prompts more effectively, help you come up with new use cases and ways to actually do those applications. But from the same perspective, you could literally ask the LLM assistant itself, "Hey, how can I use you better?" Tell it about your use case, tell it about your background. One thing I always advise people when they're new to these tools is you don't have to converse with it. I know it's a bit of a jarring feeling when you have a conversation with an LLM for the first few times because your brain is trying to work backwards from this. Is this really a human being? No, this is a piece of software. With people, you tend not to want to dump on them. At least in a healthy social interaction, you tend to not want to dump as much information on them as possible because they'll be overloaded. That's not the case with LLMs. In fact, I encourage people to kind of write those run-on sentences. Be overwhelming with information and what you're thinking about and potentially what good could look like. Be honest if you're open to new ideas or if you're looking for a very specific answer. All of these help you get more comfortable because you working with the LLM tools themselves is a skill of its own. And like I said in the last part, when you see those really bad emails coming out of people where it's obvious this person just used
Yeah.
ChatGPT, they quickly one shot prompted this and then just copy pasted, shot it into an email. That's a bad use case. That's someone who definitely should learn to use it a little bit better. Whereas someone who's able to massage it a little bit more and have a bit more of a back and forth and be able to provide more context in the prompt so it can get that response. But to answer your question, I know I'm doing the dumping here. Being able to first address your staff and kind of gauge how comfortable they are. It almost does start with having a handful of champions inside the organization who are first to adopt the technology and find a way to evangelize them, whether that's creating an AI user group within your organization and having them meet regularly, because people who are typically motivated by technology want to share the merit of that technology with their fellow workers. You have this new technology; it's a force enabler. You're motivated by the mission of your organization. Those two things alone allow for a great socialization opportunity that is win-win for everybody. People can feel good knowing that they're helping the company and they're helping themselves lift up all of their fellow teammates, and the company feels good knowing that they're getting people who are really experts at their craft, who are dedicated to their mission, evangelizing that as well.
All right, last question, and it's around AI being this force multiplier. So, in what ways can AI act as that force multiplier for innovation, decision making, and growth within an organization?
That's that's a very good question, and it's tough to answer it without knowing exact verticals and industries that you're answering it. But there are generalized use cases where you can look at where it's very helpful. One that always comes to the top of my head is a lot of companies kind of have a general Slack channel, right, where people just kind of ask questions, especially for onboarding new employees who are kind of joining a company, especially one that has been around for a very long time and has a lot of, let's call it, siloed knowledge. It's tough for them to be able to interact with people because people are people, they're busy. Depending on their own personality and their own communication style, there might be challenges in kind of getting that critical institutional knowledge across to new hires, and then without putting too much emphasis on these people to actually write documentation. A lot of people don't like writing documentation, let's be realistic. That's another great use case for LLMs. You can take recordings, you can record conversations, you can create purpose built, whether it's custom GPTs or chatbots that have all of this institutional knowledge already seeded inside of them in the form of a knowledge base. And you can have that enrich the conversations that people might be having, especially in that onboarding journey. Another use case is for pre-sales or sales enablement. Hey, where can I get, have we ever worked with this before? Can anyone show me a case study of a time we've worked with so-and-so client or so-and-so vertical? That's another easy win for a lot of companies. Just take all your case studies, dump them into a custom GPT, and have your sales team and your pre-sales engineers use that to help them quickly find the information they need. And then on top of that, there's also the post-sale support. If every time a customer is coming back to you and your support team has to go and dig through all these customer interactions and systems data in order to give them a really relevant response, well, guess what? There's another opportunity there. You can quickly grab all of that information, summarize it, and present it to the front level customer service operator at the time they're engaging with the customer. So from the customer's perspective, they're like, wow, that's really slick. You have all my information already present. Now, it's up to you if you want to continue to implement. I still don't think a lot of people like chatting, like customers. I'm talking about you, and this is even from my perspective. They don't like chatting directly with a chatbot, but I'm seeing this changing in these last 6 months in different services I use. Chatbots are getting much better at giving you the information you need in a much faster way, and there's lots of partners you can choose from to help you with this process.
Well, I want to thank the audience for tuning in to Seizing the AI Advantage, a blueprint for action. And I hope you found this session insightful and actionable as you explore kind of how to integrate AI into your marketing motion. A special thanks to our guest, good friend and colleague Aries, for sharing his expertise.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. Now, to continue learning from Aries, follow him on LinkedIn, and I'll put his connection up into this webcast. So if you'd like to revisit today's insights or explore upcoming Marketing at the Edge series, stay connected at Marketing at the Edge. Until next time, I'm Michael Elliott. Thank you for joining.